Another really disturbing article here, but not surprising, from David Bond at The Guardian. The U.S. military is poisoning communities across the U.S. with toxic chemicals. Again, um, more often than not, all of these current and kind of abandoned former military bases, military installations are like toxic Superfund sites, some of the most poisonous and polluted areas, both within the U.S. and abroad. Because again, the United States, I believe, has 700 bases in like 150 countries or something like that. Um, and again, it's always the most vulnerable and marginalized groups where these bases and installations are. So it's again those communities who can least afford it are affected by it. The communities of color, low income communities, and it's really disgusting and just another reason why we need to defund the military, invest in programs of social uplift, invest in these same communities who have been devastated, whether it's through this environmental, um, violence as far as, poisoning and dumping these chemicals and increased cancer rates and all these kinds of health problems, along with all of these places around the world where the U.S. has went to war with, bombed, occupied, through more covert means like the CIA and the front groups like the National Endowment for, Democracy, Radio Free Asia, etc. One of the most enduring, indestructible toxic chemicals known to man, aqueous film forming foam AFFF, which is a PFAS forever chemical, is being secretly incinerated next to disadvantaged communities in the U.S. People behind the crackpot operation is none other than the U.S. military. Oh, Jesus Christ. As new data published by the Bennington College this week documents, the U.S. military ordered the clandestine burning of over 20 million pounds of AFFF and AFFF waste between 2016 and 2020. 20 million pounds. That's despite the fact there's no evidence that incineration actually destroys these synthetic chemicals. In fact, there's good reason to believe that burning AFFF simply emits these toxins into the air and into nearby communities, farms, and waterways. Pentagon is effectively conducting a toxic experiment and has rolled the health of millions of Americans as unwitting test subjects. AFFF was invented and popularized by the U.S. Armed Forces, introduced in the Vietnam War to combat petroleum fires on naval ships and airship strips. Again, invented for another war of imperial conquest, something the U.S. should have never gotten fucking involved with in the first place. Obviously, hugely disastrous to the people of Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, the U.S. Army people and other armed forces who were drafted and sent over there. Obviously, a lot of poor people get sent over there to kill other poor people halfway across the country, and we have some conscientious objectors to it, like Muhammad Ali, like what was paraphrasing, but he's like, why would I go fight for my country to go kill Asian people in Vietnam when I don't even get rights in my own country? AFFF was invented and popularized by was the whiz kit of chemical engineering that forged a synthetic molecular bond stronger than anything known in nature. Once manufactured, this carbon fluorine bond is virtually indestructible. Refusing to become fuel, this Herculean bond overpowers and tames even the most incendiary infernos. Yeah, but at what cost? It's highly poisonous and known as a forever chemical, right? Yeah, forever chemical. Almost from the moment they started using AFFF, the military amassed worrisome evidence about the environmental persistence of synthetic carbon fluorine compounds, their affinity for living things, and their impact on human health. As U.S. Armed Forces became the largest consumer of AFFF in the world, also the largest user of oil in the world, troubling questions about what happens after a fire were brushed aside. U.S. military bases at home and abroad encouraged the promiscuous spraying of AFFF in routine drills where firefighters were told it was as safe as soap. Synthetic carbon fluorine chemistry, now classified as per body and polyfluorinated compounds, PFAS, are coming into focus today as fueling an unprecedented environmental crisis. After the briefest moment of practical utility, PFAS continue to haunt life with roving mobility, torpid toxicity, and a monstrous immortality. As we know, exposure to trace amounts of these forever chemicals is strongly linked to a host of cancers, developmental disorders, immune dysfunctions, and infertility. Exposure has also been linked to aggravated COVID-19 infections and weakened vaccine efficacy. Jesus. From Portsmouth, New Hampshire to Colorado Springs, Colorado, the last decade has witnessed communities near military bases waking up to a nightmare PFAS contamination in their water, their soil, and their blood. Mapping the sites of PFAS contamination in the U.S., the Department of Defense stands out as a significant contributor to the dismal list, said Dave Andrews, Environmental Working Group, told me. In its initial survey of military bases in December 2016, the Armed Forces identified 393 sites of AFFF contamination in the U.S., and you wonder how much of those sites are also abroad, too, including 126 sites where PFAS compounds infiltrated public drinking water. And again, these are linked to cancers, developmental disorders, immune dysfunction, infertility, complications with COVID. The Department of Defense has active remediation plans at a small fraction of those sites. In 2019, DoD admitted those numbers were undercounted. So, Jesus, so fucked up. Abolish the police, abolish the military. The Environmental Working Group's popular map of PFAS contamination puts the current number of polluted military sites at 704, a number that continues to rise, as does the potential liability. While some states file suit against the manufacturer, AFFF fingerprints of the U.S. Armed Forces are all over the scene of the crime. When federal scientists moved to publish a comprehensive review of the toxic chemistry of AFFF in 2018, DoD officials called that science a public relations nightmare and tried to suppress the findings. Of course they did. They don't want their fucking dirty, murderous laundry being aired. Beyond damning internal emails, the military is still in possession of a tremendous amount of AFFF. As the EPA and states around the U.S. begin to designate AFFF as a hazardous substance, military stockpile of AFFF are starting to add up to an astronomical liability on the military's balance sheet. Perhaps thinking the Trump admin presented an opportune moment, Pentagon decided to torch the AFFF problem in 2016. Jesus. One detail that stood in the way of this grand plan to incinerate it, there's no evidence that incineration destroys the toxic chemistry of AFFF. Noting that strong flame inhibition effects of the carbon-fluorine bond, a 2020 EPA report concluded, it's not well understood how effective high-temperature combustion is in completely destroying PFAS. I mean, Jesus Christ. Where is this being burned at? Not only is burning AFFF extremely ill-advised, but 6 hazardous waste incinerators contract to do some are actually habitual violators of environmental law. So in 2017, 2 of the contracted incinerators were out of compliance with some environmental laws 100% of the time, according to the EPA. Clean Harbors incinerators in Nebraska, Clean Harbors in Argentine, Utah, 2 are out of compliance 75% of the time. Norlight Incinerator in New York, Heritage WTI Incinerator Ohio. The remaining 2 were out of compliance 50% of the time. Reynolds Metals Incinerator Arkansas, Clean Harbors Incinerators Arkansas. Jesus. EPA has issued a total of 65 enforcement actions against these 6 incinerators in the past 5 years alone. God damn. Tucked into a scrappy working-class neighborhood, Cohoes, New York, the Norlight Hazardous Waste Incinerator burned at least 2.7 million pounds of AFFF and 5.3 million pounds of AFFF wastewater, likely in violation of their operating permits. Jesus. East Liverpool. So fucked up. So fucked up. Whew, wish I could say I'm not surprised, but, you know, military only serves the interest of the military industrial complex. Well, obviously, capitalism here and abroad, because international capitalism is imperialism. And again, it's always the most vulnerable and marginalized that are impacted by things like this. Defund the military, invest in those communities that have been harmed in so many ways, both here and abroad. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. Peace. Much love.